Namaste and Vanakkam. I am Suresh. I wish to extend a warm welcome to today's webinar, Coping with COVID-19 Policy Aspects. This is a sequel to the CWC intro webinar that was conducted on 16th May. I would like to thank you all for taking time off on a weekend to attend this webinar. With overwhelming response to the intro webinar and the interest shown in the sequels, we are proud to say that the registration and attendance has been encouraging. All the questions that came up during the intro webinar were compiled, answered, and mails were sent to the respective participants in 3 days by the 19th of May. Let's have a quick look at the infographics of last webinar. The feedback was exceptional, with 98% of them saying it was very good or excellent. Some said it was very refreshing ideas. Some said that the ideas discussed were unique, not touched upon in other webinars. There were 172 participants from across the globe, spread over 9 sectors, with professional service and education dominant amongst them. More than 80% of the attendees participated in the 2 polls held during the webinar, and new concepts and terms emerged during the presentation and discussion. Based on the feedback received, we have the speaker video enabled in this webinar. With this, we are sure you will be in a better position to relate the presentation with the speaker. Dr. R.S. Murali, the speaker for today, will ensure that valuable time spent by you will be fruitful. Our success is when at least one of the participants is directly benefited in coping with the C-19 crisis after this webinar, and the impact on his or her business is mitigated. We are sure that number of beneficiaries will be far higher at the end of this CWC series. For those who don't know us, MAGC comes with over 2 decades of management consulting experience, having strengths in government policy consulting and training. Our strength in private sector consulting is in process, business advisory, training and research. You may visit our website www.magc.in for knowing more about us. Before I hand over to Padmaja, my colleague, to give you a brief introduction of our speaker for the day, I wish to bring to your notice certain features and rules of the game. This being a webinar, the participants will be kept in listening mode with their microphone muted throughout the presentation. To make the webinar interactive, we will be holding a few polls, and Dr. Murali will take up your questions towards the end of the session. The instructions for these polls will be shared by my colleague Praveena at the appropriate time. Please type your questions in the Q&A box shown on your screen, and do not use your chat box for this. Thanking you all once again. Over to you, Padmaja.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Our speaker today is Dr. R.S. Murali. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with him, and I also had made a detailed introduction about him during our intro session. However, for the benefit of the participants who did not attend our previous webinar, I'll give a quick introduction. Dr. Murali's academic qualifications and main areas of specializations can be seen on the screen display. Dr. Murali is the founder and managing director of MAGC and also director of ANSA, which is the first platinum approved learning partner for ACCA in India. He's a veteran management consultant and financial professional with over 3.5 decades of consulting experience working with clients in government as well as corporate sector. He has worked as an individual consultant with external funding agencies, including the UNDP, the World Bank, the Asia Foundation, and others. Dr. Murali loves teaching and training. He's a dynamic motivational speaker who brings thought-provoking internal changes in his audience. His unique approach to conducting training has won accolades among participants and even hosts. Dr. Murali has, to his credit, many research publications and articles published in national as well as international professional journals. I now request Dr. Murali to please commence his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Padmaja. Welcome. Good evening, folks. I'm very happy we are back here, bang on a Saturday afternoon, and hopefully next about 40 minutes, let us think together. When I say think together, I'm going to think on behalf of you, because whatever we are speaking is not in textbook. Whatever we are discussing here is mostly from the heart, with occasional consultation of the brain. The concern for the entrepreneurs, the concern for organizations, and our close association with organizations is exactly what is making us give this series of webinars. So what is our agenda today? Our intention, what is happening today, is based on the feedback that is given to us. That's why you are able to see me now. A lot of you expressed that, sir, it is good that we look at you. And some of them who know me, you also speak with your hands. So we would love to have, they would love to have a hands-on with me. So that's very nice. So anyway, these are all some of the reasons why we are here with you discussing and every time changing our format and the way we interact with you. So basically, thanks for the feedback. And what are we trying to do? Thanks, we have emerged with a new model of Wisdom Boss. The Wisdom Boss is going to be with us throughout this seminar and later on. Hopefully, the Wisdom Boss enters management text very soon and organizations earlier. I'm going to carry you through walkthrough of what we discussed in the last presentation. However, we are supposed to focus on policy, process, people, and technology matters, which we call as 3PT. And today we are going to focus on policy. We need to get policy closer to us. Smaller organizations, in my experience, do not attach too much importance to policy. So we will see. And therefore, we need to understand what policies are, organizational policy, functional policies. Every department, every function needs to have policy. To be precise, policies are deliberate system of principles to guide decision making. So every organization has to have a policy, which is the basic canvas created by the promoters, the owners, the managers, the directors, whomever you call. And what does policy give you? What does policy aim? Policies aim towards outcome. What do you mean by outcome? For example, let's say I want to have good quality of product. I may say ISO so and so, so and so, this policy. And what does it do? It says it has to be top class quality that is coming out, that is acceptable by my clients, the customers. Everybody should be able to completely appreciate, use the product or service. For that, what needs to be done? The overall guidance is given by policy in a way that all the activities carried on will result in a particular outcome. Some of the accounting professionals who are here might know that we have something called as accounting policies. Why do you have accounting policies? If you stick on to the accounting policies, you are likely to create financial statements of a particular quality that are certifiable. Therefore, what is the role of a policy is outcome and not output. Output is I produce 100 units per day. I meet 10 clients today if I'm a marketing guy. I increase my business by 20%. These are all output. And what directs output? Output will be directed by what is called as processes. So I need to have my outcomes very clearly laid out, which is the canvas, which is the big picture. And based on that, I have to drive my processes towards my outcomes. This is how organizations need to be managed. Therefore, today we are going to talk about policy and particularly how COVID has impacted. Therefore, the impact of COVID, both long and short term, that will have implication throughout our series, because whatever policy changes, they will have to affect the process, they will have to affect technology, and they will have to influence people. Otherwise, organization as a one creative unit cannot exist. So what are we going to do today? We are going to particularly focus on SMEs. That's where the help is required. And we are going to look at how policies can impact. How do you do policy impact assessment during the new normal, and therefore the profitability or prosperity of the organization and the stakeholders together improve, and such a policy guideline need to be made within a particular time. So to summarize, slow policy changes can kill organizations. If you are very slow, you're in making changes to the organization, which means the brain is working slow. Therefore, the parts of the body will work slow and you will not be able to achieve what you want. Having given this intro in this canvas for today, for the benefit of guys who did not attend the last session, let me do a fast repaint of the whole thing, what we discussed in few minutes. We started off with what is the current situation. We analyzed the situation where this COVID-19 has created a massive attack on all levels and functions of organization, and the organizational subsystems have been affected to different extent. Marketing to a different extent, finance to a varying extent, and so on and so forth. Therefore, this situation has resulted in stressed organization, high pressure with the different levels of impact. Therefore, what does it affect? Such a situation has affected three W's: the workplace, the workflow, and work culture. Workplace, people who thought it is impossible to do work from home have started working from home. Workflow is completely changed. I used to go to my boss to get approvals, changed. Entire workflow has changed. The way we deal with customer has changed. Deal with the boss changed. So workflow changes. And then work culture, which is changing. And this work culture is what is going to decide the success of organization. Therefore, once this has got affected, what should be the strategic focus immediately of organizations? Organizations should have clarity in what they should do. That clarity is what we are going to discuss today. Once the clarity is done, once you have clarity, then you know what are the changes to be done, and immediately look at the cash flows, because cash flows are going to be very, very important. We'll be discussing it through the next few sessions. And in order to how to handle the situation, we have to do what is called as an impact assessment in order to have the priorities properly done. Once you have the priorities, we have to tweak the processes, we have to reallocate the resources. And where do you reallocate the resources? We need to have policy, process, people, and technology areas where the impact would be felt, and then the processes have to be rechanged and resources have to be redeployed. So what do? We need to take decision not based on logic but based on wisdom. We are going to discuss more about it today, and this wisdom boss who is now leading us, this wisdom boss is going to completely get shaped over the next few of our discussions also. So logic has proven that it will not work thanks to COVID. Therefore, we have to go beyond logic. So we need to develop some wisdom. So wisdom based organization, let's see. And therefore that would need THIS model. I'm going to define more. We are going to discuss more about this today. So trust, honesty, integrity, simplicity, these are going to be the watchwords for the new model, this model. And this only will create shift from value add to values add, profitability to prosperity, performance to sustainability. And therefore we get into values based management, which focuses on 4 thrust areas of professional values, ethical values, human values, and spiritual values. This is the summary of what we discussed, and therefore in this session we are going to look at the steps. What are all the steps with focus on policy? Now, how does a typical policy change take place? Does it happen only at the top management level? How does it work? I'm starting with an example that all of us are experiencing now, the lockdown policy change by Government of India. I'm not saying that's the best way to be done, but that shows us what are all the variables that are to be handled. What did Government of India do? The first thing that was done was safety package. Stay at home, don't come out, lockdown. And then came the economic package, step 2. And power sharing. Initially, everything controlled by the central government. Thou shalt do what I say. And throughout all these 3, what did the government do? Communication, communication, communication. The Prime Minister of the country came several times to talk. Then what happened? Slowly, these type of measures are policy measures or policy guidelines. Similarly, organizations also. Let me complete the Government of India example. So initially, they came with guidelines for health management, wear your mask, wash your hands, okay, safety and all that. Then complete physical movement stopped. And then what happened after some time, after the second and third phases, the power sharing shifted to the other levels of the government. And now what happens? The Prime Minister doesn't come that often to meet us. The state governments have taken over, and the government, central government has also said, my dear states, in certain things we will get in, but certain things please you understand the local requirements and go ahead. Now, this is a good example of how top management would initially, as of now the COVID effect will go on for some time, but the way we deal with is keeping on changing every week. So what we do, we have to immediately take stock. That has to be done at the policy level, and slowly, once proper policies are evolved and the policies are going to be, what is going to happen? The stressed organizations which are ready and make changes in workplace, workflow, work culture, what are they going to do? They have to initially hand it centrally, the top management, and and slowly we'll have to decentralize it to other levels. We are also going to discuss today some aspects of organizational restructuring, then you will understand it better. But let's first focus on policy. Therefore, all the policy, the guidelines that we are going to discuss today, initially the top management has to start. If it is a proprietary organization, the proprietors will have to think. If it is a professional firm, then the directors or the partners will have to sit together and see how things can happen. And they have to develop functional policies. We are also going to see which are all the major policies at SME level you might have to handle. So what happens? The strategic focus now shifts. Once these things, you are clear that these things will have to be, these are all the steps in which the policies have to be evolved and executed. What you need is clarity. Clarity on what? Okay, I know I have to make policy changes. How do I go about it? The clarity is the first stage. Therefore, what should we do in order to get our clarity? This is what we are going to see. So the steps are there, where from centralization of power to decentralization. And while that is happening, you have to make first policy changes, along with it process changes. While process changes we will discuss in the next sitting, today we will discuss policy change. How do we go about? So what do? You have policy and you have policy. So policies that you need to touch will be based on what is the impact it is likely to have on your working. How do you understand that? Now, there are several factors that affect an organization's policy. There are a lot of external factors and quite a few internal factors. External factors, policy of the government. The government says all that you need to do till March, we extend to June. In some cases to August, some cases to September, right? So that will also influence us, the way we plan, we do things. So external. However, what are the competitors doing? What are the other firms doing? What is happening in the market? Third, what are our customers expecting from us? As an organization, what is the customer expecting from us? Please understand, the customer is also going through the same set of troubles. So what do you need to do? We need to have dialogue with them. We need to immediately establish links with them to understand what is happening inside, because he needs your help and you need his help. So these are all some of the external influencing. I'm giving you only example. I'm not giving you the complete set of it. Internally, first pressure is on survival. How we need to survive. What is it that we need to do? The tap is not open. The incoming tap is not open. The outflow tap is open. I have to pay my rents. My fixed costs I have to incur. I might have to think. Last discussion itself, we raised an issue of how some people in the organizational hierarchy may have to get more cuts than the people who are at the lower level and all that. So all that survival things and growth. Everyone says, hey, my market is not there. I don't know how I'm going to sell the product. So we have to think, I'm not giving a solution. We are not thinking about the solution. We are thinking about ways that we will arrive at solution, right? Therefore, unless we understand the whole dynamics and the mechanism, the way it works, we will not be in a position to arrive at the required policies, right? And this type of policy derivating is iterative. What does it mean? You may have to do something, then you'll have to think something. You may have to change a lot of policies. I'll give you example. And also lot of factors like what part of business cycle you are in. Are you a matured organization? Are you only 2 years old? How many products you have? What are the services you are giving? Does some of your service relevant today? Is some of your product relevant today? All these need to be taken into consideration when you are doing policy thinking, right? So it is actually very simple. You take a sheet of paper and list out what will be hurting you. I'm just giving you macro idea. Each one will have to develop your own checklist. And then what happens? For example, I was seeing yesterday in the internet, companies, large distribution companies have started deriving temporary policies for red areas, yellow areas, and green areas. Marketing. What should be the marketing strategy for red areas? A company which is all India. So yellow areas. What do? do? How do I market there? Green areas, how do I market there? So how long this is going to be? Until red is going to be red. Red, green, yellow as a concept may be removed after 2 months. Then the policy is gone. So it is going to be iterative. You may have to do another version of the policy. So you have to have few of you thinking on what are all the type of policy changes you may have to make. Today, your employee may be working from Madurai, right? The train is on. Now he can attend. Okay, let him come and start attending office. Oh, my dear, but in 5 square feet, 4 chaps are sitting. I need to make adjustment to my office. I see. So I need to have a policy on how do I arrange, how many square feet I need to allot each people. Is there any guidance? My dear, that is what we need to start thinking. Therefore, in order to do that, we have what is called as policy impact analysis. We need to do policy impact analysis. Don't get carried away by jargon. Policy impact analysis is nothing but what are all policies I must have and to what extent I must have, and which is very important, which is the first one I have to take. We must have some scientific method. That's what this is. So before you commence your impact analysis, what is the existing policy you have? I have given as an example, normally HR policy will be there. What is the recruitment policy, promotion policy, etc. HR policy, accounting policy. If you're a private limited company, plus you will have, because the auditor has to certify the accounting policies. So accounting policy will be there. Very interesting. Larger organization may have financing policies, and some of the policies you may have to add for the first time. Work from home policy, digital payment policy. Who will approve the payment? Which are all the digital payment we accept? Which all the digital payment we want to make? How are you going to do? Then data security. So you may have a list of 5 or 6 policies which we already have, which you need to modify. You don't have, I need to add. So you are very clear. This is what you need to do before you start your impact assessment. So once you are ready with this, what do? You prepare a simple metric. You put the numbers, policy required, work from home, incentive policy, info security policy. And then what is the value of that policy to you? What is very, very important. So you do a VED analysis. Vital, essential, desirable. Is it vital? What is vital? Without that I cannot exist. I have to work from home. I have to have a policy on that. Otherwise I can't make payment to him. I can't assess his work. I can't do performance appraisal. Therefore, work from home, it is very vital. So vital means I'll give 3 points. Essential means 2 points. Desirable, if it is okay if it is there. So I can postpone it for some time to next week or week after next. Then what is the priority? High, medium, low. So on this scale, high means 3, medium means 2, low means 1. So like this I put. So incentive, I find that is essential and medium. So desirable and low. So I put 2, 2. Like that I put my marks. Similarly, information security is very, very vital, but it is of medium because I don't have so many computers and so many things. So my priority is 2. Like this I see and I get a score of 9, 4 and 6. So 9 becomes first rank, 6 becomes second rank, and incentive becomes third rank. So I know the priority, which is what I need to work. So in an organization, you may have 10 or 12 where I need to start. Already you are ready. Then what you do? Once you do that, so you have identified the priority, then which level, top level, which will affect bottom level, middle level, you have to identify which level it affects, because this will be connected in our next session where we are going to deal with process changes. Because policy alone you have, it's a nice document available and your wishes are there, your guiding framework is there, but how it is to be implemented, then you will have to have what is called as process. Therefore, I hope this is a very simple model I have given. This can work for many organizations. So then what happens? Only when this is done, clarity, we talked about clarity, the top management will have clarity, the others will have clarity. This is the way the direction is given. My dear, still we have not yet done how the process changes are going to take place. No, this is the big picture. So this will give you which are all the areas I need to touch so that I might have an aligned team with me. Now that we have done some work, I hand it over to Pravina Meghna, who will take the polls.
Good evening, all. We will go to the first poll. So I'll end poll and flash the results.
So, I mean, it has almost been 50-50, 53 and 47. Do you think
Yes.
organizations have policies for all the required functions? Very nice. So, if it is there, it is good. And the policy impact assessment, so almost 95% of the people found, if I say that it is useful, because I've given only the introduction of the concept. There are detailed ways by which these can be done, and there are several methods that this can be done. Thank you. Then let's proceed. Now we come to organizational restructuring. Any policy changes, see, why do you do policy changes? Because you need to give a overall guidance to all levels of the organization, and policy changes as much as possible. It means that the top management is sensitive to what is happening and what should happen. So this is the stressed organization, and it has normally a flat structure. And what is it going to become? What is suitable? Let's look at it. We are going to talk about totally different structure of organization. You have the top management in the center. You have the next level of functional heads. You will also have process links, because traditional organization functional head supervisory role will do well. Now, sorry, you need to have links through technology. Process links will have to be made. And then you have the third level, which are teams, various teams. I'm going to give you an example of the location of teams, how they are going to, right? So the organization will look something like this. Your traditional flat organization will not help. And how is it going to be structured? This is a circular structure organization. You may have few people in teams working within the teams. You have somebody who is with the team and the functional head linkage. You will have somebody like that. You may have somebody interfacing with the market, right? You will have somebody who interfaces with the top management. My dear friends, I am making a statement. I'm not an astrologer, but you will find that post-COVID, the middle level flab of organization will vanish. It will be top level people with experience and education and background. You will have young, intelligent, qualified minds who really want to work. Those are all the guys who are numbered there. Some of them may go to the, and you are going to have different level of contract. For example, person number 4 will be a part-time guy. He will come to you only when wanted. You will also have somebody called 6 who works for you but totally from outside the organization. Actually, you will not see him. Why? He will be sitting in some country and working for you at a rate cheaper than what your guy from your local locality may offer. All these type of things will not happen. Therefore, organizations are going to become circular, conical, and they will use technology for the linkages. You will be linked across. So the dynamics of linkages and dynamics of how things are going to take place is going to be different. The chief executive officer of a company may talk to the junior most guy 3 times every day. Today, he doesn't even see him for years. Lot of things are going to happen. The reason is, this is the only way the organization will be de-stressed and will continue to remain as a de-stressed organization. Lot of things we can debate about. Therefore, how? What creates such changes? The speed at which you cannot wait for things to happen. You cannot wait for somebody to give a signature. No, speed. Otherwise, somebody else is going to take it. Levels are going to be completely dismantled. Now, controls have to increase because there's work from home. People may not meet daily. Therefore, controls, documentation, auditability, accountability, all these will increase. And your entire key performance indicators are going to change, because you will have 2 sets of indicator, one set of indicator for the output, another set of indicator for the process strength and process robustness, because that is going to decide your cost. That is going to decide, maybe I'm going slightly fast, but that's how it is going to be. There's going to be huge amount of changes that you will find, and different type of structures of organizations will evolve. One is this, because this is applicable to small organizations also. Having stated, this will completely satisfy the workplace workflow, work culture, workplace workflow. Whatever stress it has created will get completely transformed due to the structure and the intelligent, smart policy changes you are making, because structural change and policy change together will help you to improve your processes. Once you plan the processes, only technology can come. Please don't put technology in front of process. You will fail. Technology follows the process. So think clearly about process, right? Therefore, what happens? Exactly. The functional policies will then guide the process, the people, and technology. This is how the change is going to take place. So please understand, the restructuring part of it is extremely important. In organizational restructuring, what is important is organization restructuring is imminent. You cannot avoid it. Please do it fast. You cannot wait for something nice to happen. Right. Therefore, we are going to look at some of the areas taking into consideration the revised structure, the revised set of policies. Hey, which are all the policy areas which we'll be touching? Let us see. I am not giving you a menu. I am giving you example. People related, policy related to safety, right? Policy related to salary allowances. Okay. Conveyance allowance. 80% of the time working from home. Conveyance allowance. What do I do? Work from home policies. What are all the assets of that you have to carry? I have come later on. I am giving asset sharing policy. Leave policy. Where is leave now? How do you account for leave? Is it called leave or not work policy? Okay. Performance assessment completely. Performance appraisal. How is KPI? How is it measured? Everything will change. Quality of work policy. Information security, of course, very important. Privacy, accountability, training and upskilling. What is the policy? Whether you are going to have a training manager or you are going to tell your employee, hey, go and attend this training and get a certificate online. And my policy is you attend, it is good for you also. So I will share 50% of the charge. Is there a policy for that? You need to have policy for that. So these are all, I'm talking only about SMEs. Right. Process. What are all the policy changes in workflow? So authorization, approvals, policy changes. Accounting policy. Institute of Chartered Accountants have come up with one whole publication already, where all it will affect post-COVID, how the policies are affected, how the disclosure is likely to affect, how the members have to disclose. Already it is announced. So please have a look at it. Accounting policy. I put finance in bracket because many organizations, particularly SMEs, may not have a finance policy. Now you are going to have finance policy because that's the only management you are going to do. Accounting, 99% will be outsourced. You are not going to have a accounting department sitting with you, even if it is a small organization. You will not going to pay rent, have stacks of almeras and people to do your accounting function. That will be outsourced, and somebody will take care of all that. Of course, your approval, for example, your payment, online payment, you are going to have the control within yourself. So what is important for you? How to manage finance, cost of capital, all that. So you will have to derive policy, because some of you you may outsource a CFO. CFOs are available for outsourcing. So that's it. So you need to have a policy. What are the rights and duties of CFO? Okay. And also lot of temporary bypass of certain processes will happen and sub processes will happen. You need to have a policy guideline. Otherwise, tomorrow when you do a process audit, you don't know whether it has gone as per the norms, right? Communication protocol, who can report to whom, when, for what, etc. Meeting protocol, who can call for a meeting? Simply you have a software, and can anybody call for a meeting, hold meeting and spend 2 hours on meeting every day without any output? Sorry, there'll be a meeting protocol. There is going to be a policy for that. And change management for new processes. You are going to introduce a new process. Everything was happening within one roof. Now it is happening under several roofs. How are you going to do the change management process? Right. Then we come to technology. So much can be spoken on technology, but let us understand technology will always follow process changes and people needs. What the business needs, that should never ever get dictated by technology. Please. So asset sharing and control. Are you going to buy laptops? Are you going to create IT infrastructure? Or you are going to hire it out? Or the employees will have their own? You need not do anything. You may pay for it. Security for work from home. How, what, who pays for it? Licensing. You have all the software with you. Your employee is going to sit at home and work partially. Now who pays for that? License. Hiring. How are you going to do hiring? Hiring of assets. Backing up. How is it going to happen? For everything you must have policy. Of course, business continuity planning, disaster recovery, all these things are already there, but I'm just reiterating. Contracting is going to make a big change, total change in various contracts as a fallout of changing technology and the way. So these are all some of the areas in which policy changes are going to take place, and it is imminent. And again, Praveena comes in to take over the poll 2.
Yeah, I'll launch the second poll.
In the first question, circular organization structure, very interesting to see the normal curve emerging there. If you turn that graph, you'll see a beautiful normal curve. So many people, so 37 plus 31 plus 13, they have been very positive about it. That's fine. So, I mean, these are all not, this is just an opinion from you. Whether you want it or not, things are going to change. And according to me, some way of a circular organization will have to be in place. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely difficult. Yeah, let's move. Right. Now, therefore, what has to happen if this is the case? We have understood the policy has to change, the organization structure has to change, and we also saw the sample areas of policy change. What does a wisdom boss do? Now comes the wisdom boss. Now, what does he say? He has to get out of the maze. The only way he can get out of the maze, he comes with trust, honesty, integrity, simplicity. Fascinating to me, because in the recent articles I've read, the maximum word in terms of coping, when I read, everybody is talking about trust and honesty. Then I spent some more time researching on it. And you know what I mean by trust? More than the meaning, I'm giving you example. You must have trust with the employees, customers, and suppliers, because many of them you're not going to see. They're all virtual employees, virtual customers, virtual suppliers. Only thing that is going to, even when you are within the same roof with your spouse, the most important investment in a marriage is trust. And when you are having people outside, if trust is not going to be there, you are out. And please understand, post-COVID, once somebody is not trustworthy, people will never go back to that organization or person. This is going to be very, very strong. And I believe there are quite a few of studies that has been done by Harvard, which also say that. But that's in US. I'm sure that's applicable to you and to us also. Honesty in what? Honesty in accounting, honesty in quality, accounting in disclosure. If these three honesty is not there, you are not going to get an investor. So, and you are not going to get good people joining you. How do they judge you? The organization has to be very honest, right? And integrity in what? Process, control, people, and simplicity in governance, process, rules. Simplicity in governance, process, and rules. Now, you look at this. This is called capital. These are all the four capitals that will emerge now. We call it as this capital: trust, honesty, integrity, and simplicity. And the trust and honesty is at individual level. The people who are concerned with the organization should have trust and honesty, and organization by itself will have to have systems that will provide integrity and simplicity. So this capital structure is very, very important. I'm telling you, I'm not predicting, I'm telling you in time to come, this is the basis on which companies are going to be valued. When 25, 30 years ago, intellectual property will be valued, everybody was laughing. Because in those days, people knew only what is goodwill. When people started talking about intellectual property and they will have a value, people did not. Please take it from me. This is what is going to be valued for organizations in future. I'll give an example. My colleague Ashok sent to me a very interesting clipping from Jamshedji Tata. What did Jamshedji Tata do? In those days, he formed a committee of employees to come and take part in decision-making system. That was based on trust. And you know, countries like Germany and Japan, in India, we have single tier board. In a company, you have a board of directors, one board of directors. If you go to Germany, they have two tier structures: supervisory board and management board, where all the stakeholders are involved. Go to Japan, they got 3-tier board. Why are they increasing? If you go there, the focus is on these 4 aspects only. Having stated that, since the wisdom boss is going to take a decision based on his heart, occasionally consulting the brain, he has to have professional values, ethical values, human values, and spiritual values. As we go by in other discussions, you will understand the spiritual values, what he must, which I called not VBM, VSBM, values based management, not value based. What is professional? We do what we are good at. As a professional, let's say you're a doctor, you are good at it, you will do only doctor's job. Ethical, we do things not for money alone. Money is important for the time we spend, but it is not Otherwise, we are existing. We are not existing only for money. Then human, we do nothing that affects people negatively. We will not take up anything that affects people. Okay. And this will extend to the fourth one. There is no difference between our work and us. We are totally, can you give example of no difference between you and your work? This is a typical example I give. You go on the street, you hear some music, you don't know the song, but you say A.R. Rahman, you say Ilayaraja. Why? There is no difference between this person and that music. Old timers like me, what a beautiful late cut, like G.R. Vishwanath, we say. What a beautiful shot. Like Dhoni. The shot and Dhoni, the helicopter shot and Dhoni have become one. That particular melody and A.R. Rahman has become one. Why? They are in a state of meditation. There is no between their work and us. You look at something, you say Rembrandt. You hear a song, you say Kannadasan. That is it. That is the peak of professional existence. And therefore, values-based management can only take you to that. And when you do that, there can never be organizational failures. Therefore, what is the problem? Why our wisdom boss becomes important? Because no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. We have to go to one level of consciousness above. And that level of consciousness you talk to some great dancers, they'll say after 3 hours of dancing or 3 hours of music or 5 hours of cricket, the flesh may be weak, but the spirit is willing. Why? Because they have been in total meditation. There is no ego. There is no arrogance. There is simply performance. That is exactly how organizations will have to work. And that is what is called values-based management, which will add value to the society, which will shift from personal profitability to everybody's prosperity and performance. This year I made profits to sustainable over a period of time. I don't make profits and blow up with a party. No, I reinvest properly, balancing with the ecology, right? And that is the role of the wisdom boss with an aligned team. So look at how the policy change can bring about all these things, right? And this results in improved profitability. To sum it up, the COVID has brought in the stressed organization, and we met the wisdom boss who looks at things differently because he thinks with his heart, and therefore he gets a strategic focus in order to bring clarity on what he is doing. Therefore, he jumps on policy, how to do policy changes. So he formulates functional policies after doing a proper policy impact analysis. He gets ready with certain things before, and he conducts policy analysis and then comes up with the priority. Based on the priority, he lists out what are all the policy changes to be made, which will affect people, process, and technology. And then he also looks at the organizational structure. He looks at intelligent and smart way of doing work, engaging people, putting proper processes in place, technology in place. And for this, he invests, and this capital enables him to have values-based management for adding value, because no problem can be solved. We have to go to the next level of consciousness. So unless it is with the traditional logic and traditional textbook management, we cannot. We have to go beyond that. And therefore, in this regard, we today looked at how the policy is impacting. And in the next session, we are going to look at how the process changes are going to enable this. And so thanks a lot for bearing with me. I hope we have made some progress today. I don't want you to leave. We are going to have question and answer session. Within the brief time, we will have some 5 minutes or so. I request Ashok Rao to join me, and I'm sure there are some questions which need answering. If you are not able to do in the next 5 minutes, we will 100%, the answers will be replied to you like how we did last time within the next 3 days. Thanks a lot for being with us. Yes, Ashok, I'll stop share. You can join me.
Yeah, very good afternoon to all the participants. And, like last time, what I'll attempt to do is to club similar questions and pose it to Dr. Murli so that we can attempt to answer as many questions live as possible. So one very interesting question coming up is a related thing is, given this time of uncertainty that things are changing so dynamically and probably we have still not hit the bottom yet, how often should policies change, and rather what should be the policy for the change of policy?
Absolutely. Extremely good question. I was expecting this question. That is where the PIA comes into picture. I expect certain policies to change even depending on the complexity of your organization and business model, change every week or every month also. And certain things can remain. Please, most of the things will remain for short term, quite likely the same. In certain policies, when you say policy changes, every word and semicolon and comma, they are not going to change. You know, they are going to change in certain areas, and this is the role of the top management. So therefore, yes, there will be frequent policy changes in the next time to come, and such policy changes will not be overpowering, but they will be hidden in few places which you need to be sensitive. I don't know about your business. On a one-to-one basis we can find out, but the PIA will help you assess the frequency of the change and also the extent of change. I hope this answers your question.
Moving on, so the other question is on the interaction between an organization policy and the policy by the government. So for things like migrant labor or labor laws for that matter generally, should we wait for the government to come out with its policies, or should the organization go ahead and start its own policies and then fine tune it when the government?
You know, when you laugh, the world laughs with you. When you cry alone. I will say that you need to go proactive, because we are dealing with life and we are dealing with our business. We are dealing with the life of those people, migrant laborers. We are also dealing with our company's life. Yes, the government, the justice can be delayed, but it cannot be denied. But we cannot wait for that time. My suggestion will be, we have to be proactive. Already some guidelines have been given. So you can do a bit of policy prediction. There are experts available whom you can consult if it is going to involve large amount of labor. But one thing I'll tell you, please take the necessary legal counsel so that you don't go legally wrong. Every other thing can be corrected. Yeah, that's very important.
Next question is on the THIS framework that we just discussed. This is relating to your point where you said that in future organizations are going to be valued on this. One of the participants is asking whether there are frameworks already which value this.
Partially available. There is something Harvard is working on, trust framework, but you know, yeah, it's all there. But when I say this is going to happen, capital THIS is going to happen in some shape or the other. But as far as we are concerned at Maxi, this is going to be like how we develop the 3PT. This is also being evolved by us, and we will stand by it. So we are very, very sure my reading of some of the top international brains which work with heart, they all talk about these lines, but they're all very highly disintegrated and distributed. We have tried to put everything together. So in general, something like this is going to happen, and this will be valued, definitely.
I'll take one last question since we have already overshot our time. It's all the more relevant since this question is coming from outside India. So one of the participants is asking whether companies and government in India is yet to realize the complete impact of this. Like they say, we have gone back by 5 years. Government debt is going to be 3 times of GDP very soon. So has the complete impact sunk in, and are organizations prepared?
I cannot answer on behalf of any government or anything, but as an observer and as a professional and as a citizen and as a human being who's interested in all these things, it has sunk to some people at different levels. But please understand, India is a democracy. However much the leadership can be strong, they are doing an art of balancing. So it is a tightrope walking the government is doing, and based on that, there have been lot of gives and takes. Please understand, whatever policy decisions that have been implemented need not have been with the full concurrence of the think tank of the government or the politicians or the bureaucracy. So therefore, to your question, there are pockets and people who are seriously concerned about it, do understand whatever you are saying, but in reality, however much whatever you do, it is the common man who doesn't care about most of the rules and completely flaunts in public. They don't care about all the things given. And these are all the people who decide who is going to be on the seat in the next election. Therefore, it is a very, very different situation in reality. But there are people, and slowly people are understanding. Slowly it has started sinking. That would be my reaction. Anything else, Ashok?
I think there are a lot of questions, but what we'll try to do is like last time, we will send a reply to every question. So though we can't take it up right here, and we still have 2-3 minutes more of the agenda left. So thanks for answering the questions, and please do attend the subsequent sessions also. Some of your questions will get answered there. So with this, let me hand it over to Praveena for concluding remarks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Ashok. First of all, a very big thank you to all of you again for the active participation and the very relevant questions. Some of them, of course, paucity of time, we are not able to answer right away. But as Ashok explained, we will write to you. I'm sure you are able to appreciate that though the policies we have discussed today are generic in nature, they are critical for sustenance of organizations and will apply in differing levels to each of you. However, these policies need to be implemented in how they need to be implemented will be covered in the forthcoming webinars on process, people, and technology. Your continuing support, of course, is very encouraging, and importantly, it gives us assurance that you find our content useful and relevant. Similar to last session, the webinar recording will be uploaded online and it will be shared with all of you shortly. In the next webinar, we will focus on the process aspects of coping with COVID, and we plan to present this in a slightly different way. Please be on the lookout for email invitations in the coming weeks, and please register and participate in all the remaining sessions to derive maximum benefit. Also, feel free to share webinar details with your contacts who you think might find this series useful. We found your feedback after the intro session. Feedback will be taken into cognizance in the forthcoming webinars also, just like how it has immensely influenced today's both content and presentation today. Thanks for this. Please leave any detailed comments or suggestions that you may have in the chat window. You can also write to us at enquiries@maxi.in. The email ID will be flashed on the screen now. Thanks once again for your valuable time, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar.